L'Shana Tova. While stuck at home, I know many of us indulged in a bit of binge watching. With some extra time on our hands, we made use of our Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime Video accounts to check out some new shows and perhaps revisit a few of our old favorites. But the highlight, at least in my home, was our Disney Plus subscription. Now, one might think, as the father of 3 small kids, we spent all of our time watching much beloved animated classics: Aladdin, Frozen and Frozen 2, The Little Mermaid, Lion King, and the like. Sure, we definitely checked out these classics, but in truth, our Disney Plus subscription was mostly used to stream Hamilton. Yes, we could not wait to watch this Broadway sensation, the cultural phenomenon about the $10 founding father, Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton. The Lobel household had long fallen in love with the soundtrack, singing along with our favorite numbers, especially trying to rap with Daveed Diggs' warp speed lyrics to Guns and Ships. Now, we might be a little biased, as those of you who checked out TBI's Got Talent will no doubt remember. Elizabeth and I went to high school with Lin-Manuel Miranda, but I think it's safe to say that from the record views on Disney Plus, we were not alone in our enthusiasm for this musical masterpiece. At first glance, the life of Alexander Hamilton doesn't seem like a compelling subject for a musical. A relatively unknown founding father, best recalled for being shot in a duel by Vice President Aaron Burr, doesn't exactly sound like a box office smash. But upon further inspection, we understand why Lin chose to create a musical about Alexander Hamilton. His journey is fascinating. A poor orphan immigrant who rose to prominence during the Revolutionary War as George Washington's right-hand man, the prolific author of the majority of the Federalist Papers defending the Constitution, to America's first Treasury Secretary who helped establish the financial systems essential to the success of the burgeoning nation. But Hamilton's story was largely ignored until Lin-Manuel Miranda's magnum opus. One of the most powerful moments in the musical occurs during a conversation between an emergent Alexander Hamilton and then military commander George Washington before the decisive Battle of Yorktown. Washington reminds him, while history will surely record what happens, the imminent battle, the struggle for freedom, they have no control over 3 elements: who lives, who dies, who tells your story. There is no way of predicting who will survive the battle and who will perish. That is the nature of war. And it is impossible to solely define our own legacy. That is the nature of life. Who lives? Who dies? Who tells our story? This question is echoed in one of the most haunting and challenging prayers in our High Holy Day liturgy, the Unatana Tokef. This prayer speaks of God's supreme authority regarding our fate. At this time of judgment, God determines what will befall us during the coming year. The liturgy is powerful and intimidating, speaking to the heart of our gravest fear, the fear of our own mortality. Who shall live? Who shall die? Who by fire and who by water? And so terribly relevant this year, who by plague? And the answer to these questions, my friends, is that we don't know. We don't know what this year is going to bring. Who possibly could have predicted what 2020 had in store for us while we were sitting together in the sanctuary last year intoning this chilling and disturbing prayer? The lack of our control, of our own agency, is terrifying. While this prayer does, in its coda, affirm our ability to alter our fate through the actions of repentance, prayer, and righteous giving, it makes no guarantees. The length of time we have left, the span of our lives, is unknown to us. We cannot predict or foresee how or when our time is going to come to an end. Old or young, expected or unexpected, in our sleep in our beds, on a ventilator in the hospital. We just don't know. We have no control over our lives. We have no control over who lives and who dies. It is out of our hands. And it is true we do not know who will tell our stories. We do not know who will speak of us after we are gone. We hope our family, our friends, will keep our legacy alive through their words and actions. But also there are those we impacted in ways we don't understand. We might not even recall our interaction with them, but they remember us. When those who speak of us after we are gone, when they invoke our name, what will they say? How will we be remembered? We may have no control over who lives, who dies, who tells our story, but we do have a say regarding how we will be remembered. We have an opportunity while we are still here to shape our narrative. Our tradition teaches us during the high holy days, our deeds are inscribed in a book. All our accomplishments, all of our missteps thus far have been chronicled in the heavenly realm. But the book is not yet complete. As long as we live, we have the power to influence what will be written. If we are unhappy with our current direction, if we are worried about the story we are currently writing, we have the power to change it. Like a choose-your-own-adventure book, the decisions we make will determine how our story plays out. We are the authors of our own book of life. We just need to grab hold of the opportunity. We need to take hold of the pen. However, we know from past experiences this is easier said than done. The process of changing our narrative, of becoming what we are not but long to be, takes a great deal of effort. In order to author a new chapter, we need to confront our obstacles which stand in the way, things that we tell ourselves which inhibit our ability to change. The first challenge we face, which precludes us from taking hold of the pen, is the powerful pull of procrastination. Oh, it's so tempting to put off the steps that we need to take to change our lives. How often have we said, we'll work to better ourselves when we have the time? I'll start my diet next week, just after the holidays. After this next project, I'll take a step back from work to renew my focus on my family. I'll begin my training for the next phase of my career when I have the time. Over and over again, we find a way of postponing our efforts to create positive change in our lives, so our story remains the same. Change does not happen on its own. We need to act, to put in the work. We cannot expect our narrative to rewrite itself, for self-improvement does not occur of its own accord. We need to put in the effort immediately, work to transform our lives like we are running out of time. Nothing will happen if we just wait for it. Instead, we must realize that it is today, Hayom, when we must commit to changing our narrative. There is no time like the present to make a bold move, to take on a new challenge, and start a new journey. We cannot throw away our shot at authoring our next chapter due to our continuous stalling, hemming, and hawing as we sit on the fence between who we are and who we would like to become. Procrastinating does not benefit us. It only wastes our most precious resource, our time. As Benjamin Franklin remarks, you may delay, but time will not, and lost time is never found again. Another problem we face when it comes to taking charge of our own narrative is that of complacency. The book of our lives may not be a bestseller, might not fly off the shelves, but it's okay. We're happy with how things are. We are content. We are satisfied. How easily we convince ourselves we are fine with the way our story is being written. We can take a quick scan, a surface-deep look at our lives, and we do not register any problems. We see nothing in need of repair. But what happens if we dig a little deeper? What do we see? If we are honest with ourselves, we realize not everything is perfect in our lives. There are definite areas of refinement, qualities we wish to improve upon, or others we wish to do away with entirely, relationships which we have strained or frayed, dreams left unfulfilled. If we ignore them, if we sweep them under the rug, we'll never see any improvement. There are also likely moments over the past year we wish we could erase, times when we wish we could have used a little whiteout to obscure deeds written in our book of life. Moments we wish we could undo. If we pretend they didn't happen, what comes next? Likely we will wind up repeating the same misstep next year. Instead of glossing over our imperfections and the mistakes that we have made, let's work to create something different. Let us shake off our pretenses of our artificial sense of contentment and admit we long for renewal. We cannot fall into the trap of complacency. Put another way, in order for us to write our new chapter, we can never be satisfied. The final challenge we face, which hinders our ability to grasp the pen and rewrite our story, is a fear of failure. Let's face it, we have all previously tried to change our lives. Sometimes those efforts were successful, and other times we fell flat on our face. We gave it a shot, but wound up falling well short of our goals. So instead of trying again, instead of beginning a new chapter, we drop the pen in frustration. The fear of failure can be crippling, paralyzing. When we decide to make a change, to go in a different direction, to take a risk, we are excited, energized, optimistic. We feel scrappy, hungry for change. But then we hit a wall. We trip over a hurdle and have trouble finding our footing. Then all of our determination, all of our passion begins to fade. Our resolve weakens. Slowly, feeling the shame rise within us, we surrender and go back to the way things were. The memory of these past failures plague our mind, and when we think about taking another chance, about pursuing a new course, we retreat. We mustn't let past disappointments undermine our willingness to compose a new narrative. It is natural to become discouraged if previous attempts to change were unsuccessful, but we cannot be afraid to try again. God has granted us the ability to pick up the pen, but we need to believe in ourselves. If we shore up our confidence, if we marshal our capabilities, we can emerge victorious from the quagmire of self-doubt and march into a new reality. As Thomas Jefferson once said, nothing can stop the person with the right mental attitude from achieving their goal. This Rosh Hashanah, let us confront these ideas which prevent us from true transformation and call them out as the false illusions they are. We must admit they are merely excuses, falsehoods we tell ourselves to pardon our stagnancy in the struggle for self-improvement. These delusions keep us mired in the status quo, forcing us to muddle through uninspired and unhappy. We must push past our temptation to procrastinate, our feelings of complacency, and our fear of failure. Let us erase them from our mind and realize we can do better. We can change. We can take control of our narrative. We are not helpless. My friends, Rosh Hashanah reminds us that we are not completely at the whim of fate, but rather we have the power to write our own story. If we do not take steps to write a new chapter, to take hold of the pen, we'll be back next year, lamenting the fact we are not the person we wish to be. We must seize the opportunity before us and make the effort to change. We don't know how many pages remain in the book of our lives. We don't know how many chapters are left to write, but we hold the pen. We are the authors of our story. What will we write? Shana Tova.